Welcome back, everybody, to Dreamhack Winter 2016. Our Grand Prix continues into round number 4 of the Swiss portion. That means we're about halfway through, assuming this round finishes pretty smoothly. Now, we do want to make a quick announcement, given that we had a rough schedule to the beginning of the day due to some technical limitations. Everyone remembers we played 3 best-of-5s in the beginning from round number 1. As such, we're going to cut off round 7 for the first day of broadcast, but we're going to play it tomorrow first thing. So just rather than keeping people here till really late and then starting early, we decided just to move round 7 up and then just playing one of the round 16 matches off stream, which in the end is the same amount of content, but we want to keep you guys informed. That's what we try to do, just communicate the relationship. Speaking of some communications and relationship, we have the Brits in the tavern. We have Raven as well as Lorinda. You guys are going to be bringing the next match, which is really exciting. For round number 4, we're going to be broadcasting Firebat from Cloud9 up against Justsaiyan from Team Tempo Storm. Going to be a really cool clash of 2-1s right now. But before we do that, we have a little bit of downtime because the players are getting set up. So why don't we go ahead and just update on the standings. So right away, as you guys were scoring through the Battlefight bracket, you guys can follow along. What are some of the players and notables that are sticking out to you?
Yeah, I think one of the ones for me there, we can see right at the top of the bracket was Cursed. A player who's actually, a lot of pros actually rate, but just hasn't really put too much, on the scoreboard in terms of tournaments. But being 3-0 in this tournament, one of the most stacked Swiss brackets there is actually pretty impressive overall. And if he can keep that up, it's going to be looking really good for him to make a much bigger impact on this tournament than he normally does.
Lorinda, what about you? What's another player?
JJ 3-0. Again, he's won more Swiss games than anybody in Dreamhack Grand Prix in 2016. Just doing it again and again. And also Dawn, winner of WCA, one that people may not have spotted there.
Yeah, JJ has the most series wins in Dreamhack history so far. In terms of how long we've been doing the Grand Prix, the guy's an absolute monster. And he, what's cool, really cool about what Super JJ does is that he just does his own thing.
Right.
Sometimes he brings Priest at a time where Cthulhu Priest is like bad. He still gets top 8 from it. I really respect a player of his caliber. Certainly one of the ones to watch out for. My big takeaway today is I don't even know how Wife Coach is doing it, but she's also 3-0, having defeated not just Maverick on stream, but also Camlin, a very respected player from Germany. And will she continue her rampage? I mean, she has another tough opponent coming up in round number 4, and that's an amazing story in itself. I'm also looking for players like Oskaka to do really well today. He's currently 3-0. He's just recently signed with Alliance, and he went through a period of time where he just lacked a little bit of motivation. He said that he was competing, but he wasn't really doing very much. He was mainly actually just having fun, celebrating the fact that he's a young guy. He's 20 years old. He just won the World Championship, so he kind of took it easy for 2016. Didn't nearly go as hard. He said in 2017 he's going to go really, really
just
hard
those
again.
3 things you do when you're young. You're young, you have fun, you win the World Championship. Just throw it in that order.
Yeah.
So
Sequencing doesn't really matter if that's the case, but I think he win World Championship party and have fun. This time around, though, 2017, said he's going to try his hardest and go super hard into it. And I think Dreamhack's a perfect venue to do that as the first major here, because we are giving away points for 2017.
Yeah, I think it's really important, as you said, that this is like the first tournament with points for the winter season, and a good placement or a win, of course, pretty much just guarantees you into winter, the winter prelims. Almost guarantees as long as you finish high on the ladder if you get top 8 or something. And it's such a huge boost of points that getting just straight in through one weekend of playing is actually a huge advantage. It just frees up more time to actually focus on your preparation for the prelims itself.
Yeah, you don't need to then play 100 open cups and try and just grind out those points that some of these players do so well. It's just 3 months of taking it a little bit easy, although there's last call points on the line, so some of these guys, even if they win this, won't let up because the guy with the most points goes straight through. So
yep, it's a really good point. I think one of the things to consider too is going into 2017, they announced not just the Hearthstone Championship Tour, but also the global games. And they mentioned the point leader for each of their country will be selected as the captain. So you can definitely tell that a lot of people are trying to scramble as many points together, so that way they can be selected on the team and avoid the voting process altogether. Really competitive for China, really competitive for USA, Canada, and Germany, Sweden. But some of these other countries, say you're from Greece or you're from Italy, you're from Spain, and you definitely come to these Dreamhacks looking to have that big splash of points, and you might realistically get 5, 6, 7, 8 points, and that could be the one leading your country.
Yeah, it's going to be actually, by country, very difficult to beat someone who's placed in top 16 at Dreamhack because even just the 2 points you actually get from top 16 is like, it's 2 points no one else can get, basically.
Yeah, precisely. So you definitely know that these players are trying really hard. Also, we have $27,500 on the line for the prize pool, so a handful of chunk of change. And one thing that I really appreciate about the way we broke down the prize pool is that first place gets $8,000, which doesn't immediately stand out to you like, okay, that's $8,000, like that's pretty good. But when there's almost $30,000 on the line, you're like, well, where's it spread out? It's actually because we fanned out to the top.
I'm so pleased. That's something I've been moaning about for a long time. Like, we want pro players to come back and play more Hearthstone. And if one guy's got all the money, where do the others keep playing?
It's less top heavy. It's very much spread out, and I think that's the way people would want to prefer. Because even if you just get top 16, at least you paid for your trip, most of it. Some people, of course, fly it, but
I think as well, it's like a dual reward of actually giving some payouts for the players who perform. So as you said, they can actually just keep coming back, keep traveling to events, and also top 16 in this tournament. It's actually a pretty impressive achievement, and to fan the money out of it more. That's actually really difficult. Anyone who makes it out of Swiss has had an extremely good day and a half of playing Hearthstone and performed very well to beat out some of these guys.
Yeah, if you get through the round of, if you go through the Swiss round and go to round 16, you at least had to have a 77% win rate in the tournament. You have to go 7-2. Yeah, and that's really impressive. So taking a look at these guys' lineups, you already start seeing why Saiyan stands out amongst the rest is that he has Rogue in his lineup, and Rogue's definitely one of those live or die by classes. It's just, you bring Rogue to a tournament, and immediately you get a few eyebrow raised. People always be like, you're an idiot. And then there's also people who say, you're a genius. So I think it's one of those things where it's very individually driven on whether or not people like it or dislike it. And Saiyan's one of those guys who just feels like Rogue is always good to bring in last year's standing tournaments. And I tend to favor to that side. I like Rogue a lot, but I can also see it not working out for some people.
Yeah, I think the thing with Rogue is a lot of the time from what you see in competitive matches is it either demolishes someone or it loses horrendously. So it feels very, not very consistent, but the amount of times I've seen people just go questing into Conceal, and they just win. Yeah, that's it.
You can't stop
You've just won. So, if you're comfortable with the deck and you're happy to deal with the sometimes it kind of beats itself, then the deck's good. Like, the deck is actually pretty decent.
The reason why I like it is because Rogue is like Temple Mage, it's like Druid, where in a sense that sometimes it just sweeps, just because it just doesn't get answered. And there are some matchups which are a little bit bad, which is part of the reason why I think right now in the metagame it's a little bit vulnerable compared to other ones is because there just seems to be so many things that kill it. But at the same time, when people least expect Rogues when it's at strongest. People aren't really accounting for Rogues in lineups these days. They're looking at Firebat's lineups like Zoo, Temple Mage, Druid, Shaman, maybe even a Control Warrior. Where do we really fit in Rogue in this metagame, Lorinda?
I'm not a big fan of Rogue right now, but that's because Rogue is hard and I'm bad at it. People who bring Rogue
disagree there.
are like a different breed of player. They just bring Rogue because they are good at Rogue, and a lot of people won't be ready for it. But it's difficult right now. It's weak against the aggressive classes, which is like a lot of them. I count Tempo Mage as aggressive. I think it's weak against Zoo right now. So, yeah, let's see how this one goes.
All right, well, it looks like we're going to get things off. The mulligans have been in, so Saiyan versus Firebat. Raven and Lorinda, enjoy.
Thanks a lot, Frodem. So, yeah, it's going to be the Rogue that we've been talking about from Saiyan, kicking things off against Firebat Zoo and getting off to a pretty reasonable start. The Felguard, what a like weird card to try and work out whether it's going to be good or not. The taunt is great, the health is great against Zoo, but you do just permanently destroy a mana crystal when you play it. So it's a bit of a weird trade-off. And then versus Rogue, who you kind of want to be ahead of your opponent, especially versus Zoo. It might not be worth it, but for now at least, it doesn't seem terrible with the hand of double Conceal.
Like, given that his hand is so awful right now, it can change really quickly. I mean, this double Conceal hand, if you get a quest in, can suddenly become an amazing hand. But given his hand right now, he may end up having to play this Felguard, and then if he draws something that costs 5 or 6 mana, we might find him in a bit of a spot. So the next 2 draws are going to be crucial to decide what he wants to do with this.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I feel like if you play Felguard, and it soaks up 2 sort of chunky minions from the Zoo, then you're probably still not feeling great because you just permanently a mana crystal down, but you're feeling okay. Like, it could have been a lot worse. At least you've sort of tried to stem the tide that is the Zoo deck.
Right, and he may find a way now with this to to wriggle around the Felguard because he's going to be able to play the Tomb Pillager on 4, get the coin, play the Felguard, and then maybe use the
and
coin
for one turn, have his normal mana
at least
again.
kind of get out of it a little bit for one turn if he feels a need to play it. This is a great pickup as well.
Yeah, the deck can normally just a one-of, and even then not super common in Rogue. It's more of a stylistic choice than a staple, really, in the Rogue deck. But just saying, it's going to get some work out of it. Definitely good versus Zoo when you can just kill a juggler. It's got to feel pretty great.
And we've been talking about Saiyan's hand, but Firebat's also got this really awkward hand, the double Soulfire one, that everybody who's ever played Zoo, who
just draw Silverware Golem, it's not a problem. And then just control your discards, and then you win. So you play Zoo, right?
I always wondered how you did that. Yeah. Right, yeah. So everyone who's ever played Zoo has had this problem with the Soulfires, and it does just become a bit of a mess if you're not careful. But it's a favoured matchup, as we've said. But Saiyan is managing to develop some sort of board, and that Edwin with the double Conceal and Cold Blood could get really interesting.
Yeah, it could be one of those moments where you see the weird sequencing of Conceal, where the Conceal happens before the minion hits the board, just to buff Edwin that little bit more. We'll see how that plays out. It's going to happen a little bit further down the line. As you said, the double Soulfire, I feel like this is the time we're going to see at least one of those come out to play, because that is a very, very clean kill.
Yeah,
Pillager there.
Discards the other one, which probably not what he wanted to be. It's not a disaster in fairness, because now he gets to play the Counselor. So Edwin is one of the ways you can beat Zoo with this deck. And getting that coin means that Edwin is probably going to be pretty big if he can find something to actually play first.
Yeah, I think Edwin's always scary. Of course, it can just win games if you stack it big enough, stealth it, get a couple of attacks off. But suddenly, you know, just a Defender of Argus draw from Firebat could actually kind of just lock out Edwin long enough for the Zoo, for him to actually just win. So it's going to be very reliant on, you know, when Justsaiyan decides to activate this Edwin, and then if Firebat can put enough sort of tiny speed bumps in the way of it to make it awkward.
Yeah, and right now he can't even get Edwin through a Void Walker, let alone anything actually good on the board.
Now.
So
Here comes the Felguard.
Here we go.
Yeah, so this is the turn now that Felguard's come down, Justsaiyan knocked down to 4 mana. So Firebat is now ahead. Obviously had the coin later on as well, but he's going to choose to tap and just take it slow.
Yeah, 10-6 Edwin, then Conceal, then hit face again, then Conceal, then hit face again. That's 30. That's his plan. Yeah. Whether he can do it or not with Zoo like onslaught while he's trying is a different matter, but his plan is now to just hit face with Edwin down to twice now at 22.
Yeah, and the frustration is going to be cards like Voidwalker we see now from Firebat, because it has to be killed. If you trade that Edwin into the Voidwalker, then you probably just lose the race because of that. What you were saying, you know, 2 to 3 hits get him the win, you know, depending on the outcome. And the second you slip on one and you give Zoo 1 extra turn, you die. Like, that's just how it is. You're not going to win that race. So you have to see if Justsaiyan is a good answer to this Voidwalker here.
Yeah, if you can pick up something in the region of backstab is what I'm thinking, or maybe eviscerate even. He won't be dead next turn, 3, 6, 7, 11. So now he needs to get some removal, probably from this Swashbuckler.
Yeah, this is a tough one because Azure Drake just feels good because it's on curve. It's a relatively chunky minion, but then you just throw away all chance of concealing the Van Cleave.
Right.
And then the Van Cleave could just die to like an abusive on the counter.
You need precisely
you know what I mean?
backstab or something to even have a chance. So he's going for this burglar. If you can get something that helps, that doesn't help. Well, it sort of helps, but it doesn't help enough.
It's, yeah, no discard mechanics for Rogue as far as I'm aware at least, so.
But the 3/3 may allow Saiyan to make trades that just buy him the extra turn for the Van Cleave twice.
At the end of the day, the 3/3s is still an additional body he could play that turn that starts to contest some of the board as well, so.
But a second Void Walker appears, so the Cold Blood's going to end up in a different
That's what the Silverware Golem's for.
Sure, but now the Silver Golem's not going to be able to deal with, say, the Councilman or something, so it's going to be Edwin on defensive duty unless maybe another Cold Blood would sort that out, but it's looking right now like it's going to be difficult.
Argus is the scary one now.
Right.
Being able to taunt multiple minions is going to be an absolute pain for Justsaiyan. I feel like this was the card he needed Firebat not to draw at this point, because now suddenly he has to start trading to multiple minions. And then Zoo's just going to overrun him. You know, even the Villager, the Imp Gang Boss on the board are just minions that are a pain to deal with and will start to stack up a lot of damage going forward.
Right, and if people are wondering, well, it's still fairly close on board, it kind of is, but if you get rid of your Edwin, that's your win condition gone. So then the Zoo will just stomp you inevitably. Even if the Edwin starts trading into minions, which it's going to have to do, you no longer have that burst finish to beat the Zoo, and the Zoo, even if it doesn't beat you soon, which it probably is going to anyway, it will inevitably just start playing more and more stuff that you can't get rid of.
We've seen that. We've seen now, like Firebat with that Defender of Argus, knowing you've put up awkward health minions to deal with. Like the Swashbuckler's not really going to get too much done by itself against this board. He's just gone face, put his opponent to 8 and said, okay, I've not played any Doom Guards this game, so for all Saiyan knows, he's got a Doom Guard prepped and ready to go. There's still abusives in the deck. There's so much additional damage that could come from Firebat. Justsaiyan is in a very, very tricky spot here and needs to navigate as best he can to get out of it.
Yeah, and he needs to navigate out of not only dying, but he needs to be able to keep this Edwin in some sort of shape to win the game with if he possibly can. And...
So there's going to be 4 damage available if you trade the Swashbuckler into the 1/1. The problem is really here that either way you're dead to Doomguard, so he doesn't go for the trade. He puts the Cold Blood on instead, and this is great because
it stops the tap.
Yeah, yeah, and you're dead to the same stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're actually just dead anyway. If Doomguard comes out, you lose. So
because you're representing 12 damage, you're also stopping Firebat from able to tap. Which means that if you're not dead to the hand, he can't dig that extra 1. But he may read this as, I have to dig anyway because otherwise I lose.
Yeah, like I need to win this turn.
But he doesn't.
Yeah, the only thought is because of that Void Walker, he can put another speed bump in the way. And, you know, he's kind of seen, well, Rogue's only got 1 card. Like, what can he actually have that's going to punish it? It needs to be, you know, exactly a spell damage backstab or something.
Yeah,
like
he's got Azure Drake into backstab, plus his regular draw needs to be maybe the other eviscerate. That would do it. This isn't it, I don't think. Can't see any way out now. So even the backstab would be 1 short.
Yeah, this is looking pretty rough. Not the
That's
backstab.
Definitely not that one.
And that is going to be game. Justsaiyan cannot defend against the Zoo onslaught. Firebat, as we mentioned earlier, where he had his first match streamed. He was saying regarding Zoo, he thinks if you ban Shaman out, Zoo is just by far the best deck, and he's opening up with it against the Rogue of Justsaiyan, working out pretty well so far.
Yeah, I think what he means by that is actually I think Druid is the best deck at the moment. But Zoo destroys the Druid and is good enough against everything else that makes Zoo the best for this particular tournament at this time.
Yeah.
I think if you play anything else, I think Druid is a slightly better deck. Yeah. But yeah, the way the Firebat speaks, he means that's the best.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's the best if Shaman's gone. Well, you beat the Druid.
All the things that beat Zoo are things that nobody's playing.
Yeah.
Apart from the things you're banning. So yeah, 1-0 and Zoo trying to do that thing it can do in LHS where it just goes straight through the field. Yeah,
and to be honest, the Rogue, that game really wasn't so much just Rogue had a bit of a poor draw. Double conceal against Zoo is not what you need. We didn't see backstabs or SI7 agents. So like that's Rogue at its worst, in my opinion. In where
Felguard was a mess.
Yeah, but to be fair, cards from Swashbuckler, you can never rely on them, right? But in general, no backstabs, no SI. I don't know if he plays Deadly Poison, but no Deadly Poison, for example. It's going to make that matchup very, very hard. And the 2 cards he had would conceal early on. But enough of that. We are moving on to game 2. Firebat, of course, still on his Zoo list as this is last hero standing. And it looks like Justsaiyan has switched over to his Warrior.
Right, and this is why last hero standing games are often 3-2 and why they're often 3-0. If Saiyan wins this game, then it's back in the balance, there'll be counter picks and so on. If he loses this game, he's in a world of trouble.
And look at that hand from Firebat. He can get going pretty quick with an almost guaranteed
just needs a 1-drop.
Silverware Golem.
Any 1-drop. Not a 1-drop.
Oh, if this is him, Gang Boss, I'd cry if I was Firebat. Oh my god, it is.
Start crying, Raven. Start
If
crying.
I was Firebat, was the caveat I said.
Start crying Firebat.
The second Malkazar's Imp can actually get a lot of work done for Firebat going forward, especially because the minions he has in hand are the Silverware Golem, so that whiff on the Imp Gang Boss wasn't, backbreaking for him. But he would still like to have seen a Silverware Golem.
Sure, yeah, it would have been amazing for him. Saiyan drawing that Fiery War Axe on turn 3, and it turns out a 3-2 weapon on turn 3 is nowhere near as good as having it on turn 2 or turn 1.
But also, it's Acolyte versus 3 minions on the board that only do 1 damage. You got to be feeling pretty good about that. As just saying you're almost guaranteed. Like you're already guaranteed 2 draws now, but you're probably pretty happy with getting 3 at this point.
Although, I mean, it's fantastic. He's going to get to fill his hand up with cards and stuff, but at the moment, he's almost got the hand that's okay anyway. He should be able to cast this lot and draw into stuff anyway. So that'll be more insurance policy later as he draws these cards. But he's almost in the position that he can deal with a lot of the problems, unless Firebat draws more discard, like the Librarian or Soulfire.
Well, the key thing is you just all Justsaiyan wants to do is have answers available to him. And although he has a great hand to deal with the board now, he wants to continue to have a hand and be able to continue to answer Firebat throughout the whole game, and that is plan to win this one.
Right.
Friend of Argus is a pretty good pickup.
This is interesting because Saiyan chose there not to attack with the War Axe, saving the charge possibly because he's got Brawl in his hand. And Firebat maybe didn't have, but Firebat's not got much choice. He's kind of got to go all in. You can't hold back against the Warrior. It's too bad a matchup to start tiptoeing around Brawl.
As Zoo versus Warrior, if you play around Brawl to the extent of a turn 5 Brawl, then you are probably just not going to win the game because of that. Never mind losing to the Brawl, you lose to yourself a lot of the time. But the Brawl did happen, and Justsaiyan got one of the means you could actually kill off with that axe. So a full clear for him on 17 health now.
Look
but
at this comeback,
is a Doom Guard into 2 Silverware Golems after the Brawl. Justsaiyan's reaction says it all. Just the shake of the head, leans back, not like this.
Wow, that's just the ultimate comeback, and of course he just has
no execute either. There is.
The revenge is for 3.
Shield block, shield slam.
The revenge is for 3 as well. If that had been 13 health instead of 12, then what a difference it would have been.
Oh, okay. He's actually developing the minion and taking the damage now, presuming that Firebat will not be able to do 7, and instead saving the shield block, shield slam for probably the minion that gets played this turn to just, stay on top. Okay, maybe not Possessed Village.
And this is where, incredibly, the Zoo is actually behind. It looks like the Zoo's in front, he's done so much damage, but now the Warrior begins that slow and tedious rebuilding of armor. And Firebat inevitably, almost
as you said, rebuilding of armor. Just a card True Heart swooped into the hand there for Justsaiyan, so next turn that's going to look great. Sylvanas off the Barnes as well, and when you've got a board and your Zoo opponent doesn't, as you said, you are ahead regardless of life totals.
Just to point out there as well, the inevitability of the armoring up. Saiyan just skipped the value of that shield block and said, right, my weakest turn for the rest of this game is this turn right now. I'm going to gain 5 armor. If you don't kill me now, I win. Whereas, if you wanted the value play, you'd save that for a bit later. But a bit later, you've won anyway. So
yeah, if the game goes late, you win regardless. So Justsaiyan managed to even it up there. And as you said, kind of go for the counter picks. But to be honest, Revenge, the Brawl, the War Axe, all coming together to completely wipe the board. And against Zoo, once your board's wiped, you're feeling pretty good about life, especially as the Warrior, as you said, where you can just armor up, get out of range, and they're not really fear anything going forward. So it is 1-1 now.
Yeah, would expect no less. I think these two players are both 2 and 1 at the moment in the Swiss.
They are.
So winner of this obviously in a great position, 3 and 1, obviously 2-2. Probably got to win 5 in a row from that point to make the top 16. So absolutely huge next 3 games, basically a best of 3 now. And Firebat obviously pretty predictably pricks the Druid into this Warrior now.
Yep, gonna see if we can get some work done. Justsaiyan keeping the Twilight Summoner, something he can pretty much get away with because Druids, even at their fastest, are not that fast.
Right.
So you can more than likely just drop that Summoner down and be okay with effectively for that turn playing a 4-mana 1-1.
Yeah, we'll see a very different approach from Saiyan this time. He'll be getting value out of every card he can. He will be trying to race through his deck to try and keep up with Firebat because Firebat's going to try and race through his to find his threats.
Yeah.
The Warrior has to try and keep up to find its answer faster than the Druid can find the threats, and usually it can't.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time you'll see Nourish almost always used, or at least the first Nourish always used for cards. If there's double Nourish in hand, then you can mess around with that combination. But in general, you always want to Nourish into cards, get through your deck, because guess what? Probably winning the long game versus N'Zoth Warrior. So you draw your deck and then end as quickly as possible in this matchup as the Druid.
Yeah, and Saiyan here's not even going to play into something like Harris, not going to give any information, not going to do anything, just going to
and like I said, with the the Twilight Summoner being kept shows the expectation of how fast this match is going to go on, more realistically how slow it's going to go. There is no requirement to coin into War Axe whatsoever. You can play the War Axe this turn because it's not getting don't have to use any extra resources. But Justsaiyan is just equipping it just for a rainy day at this point.
Right, Firebat's decision time again. Notice he went for Spell with his first Raven Idol, by the way. That's not always what the pro players do. A lot of them do swear by going for a minion. but by going for spells, you do reduce your giants, so you can play them quicker. But by going for minions, you don't need a giant because you've got a minion.
I think what's important as well is it was a turn 1 go for spell,
so you can...
and Firebat's lacking ramp. So he's lacking, any of his acceleration, lacking card draw. Obviously, he has Nourish now,
Right.
but
He went
lacking
for spell
card draw,
as well,
lacking ramp. And because the problem is, with double Drake and Nourish, well, when's he going to play this minion he's going to
Sure,
summon, right?
you always assume it's going to be about a Yeti.
Yeah, so when are you
where's it
actually going to play it in the next, probably 6 turns?
And this is what makes this Druid deck so hard to play. And I mean, it is a difficult deck to play well. I've spoken to a few players who are saying it's the hardest deck.
It's the deck that I think performs the best if you play it well.
Right, and nobody plays it well.
But also, you can be heavily punished if you mess up.
Yep.
You mess up one choice from a Raven Idol early on or whatever, because they're the hard parts. Raven Idol turn 1, what the hell do you pick?
Right,
and sometimes it's not obvious.
Because, again, there you've got to think ahead. You've got to think what you just described about when I'm playing my minions. Every single hand can be very slightly different and make a huge difference to what you actually do. And in this case, just having that double Azure Drake meant, you know what? I'm going for spells this time.
Yeah, and you see now the Summoner getting put down as we guessed on that magical turn 4, and that in itself is just a kind of pain for Firebat.
Right.
It's like, well, it can keep chipping away, great, and I don't care about one attack at all, but eventually damage is going to happen, and then a 5/5.
Damage happens. That's the thing that happens in Hearthstone, especially when you've got Swipe in your deck, which likes to go face. Sometimes even in Druid now, you swipe face if you're not saving up for some sort of double Innovate Malygos thing. You just swipe face so you don't waste mana on turn 7 or 6, just when it fits in nicely. And suddenly you give your opponent a 5/5?
Yeah, and this is exactly what we were talking about earlier. We're like, Nourish, always used for card draw, but it depends on what your hand looks like. And suddenly with the Asheraj in hand, guess what's good? A 10 drop way quicker than your opponent has 10 mana that they have to deal with and summons another threat. So now Firebat deciding that he has enough cycle with the Azure Drakes, Nourish can afford to ramp, then he gets into Yasharaj as quick as possible.
And Saiyan reading that, by the way, he wasn't going to do anything differently anyway, most likely, but a little bit suspicious. Your opponent's ramping up. So I'm going to play all my Death Rattle minions now so that I can set up a brawl and my stuff will live and your stuff will die, and I'm going to have the board and you're not. And that way you get to save your executes, your shield slams for a rainy day.
Yeah, I think when your opponent turn 5 nourishes into mana, you expect the big boys. You expect the Ragnaros and Malygos. Now, more recently, maybe even a Yasharaj or something bigger. And you've got to expect that sort of thing to come out, because we're also getting to the point in the tournament where scouting is a real thing. These deck lists are hidden, right?
Yep.
But you can just ask people like, oh, you played this guy earlier. What sort of decks did he bring? And then suddenly that information becomes more broadly known and it becomes more obvious as to what everyone's playing. So, Same will know Firebat's playing the Yasharaj variant at this point, so now he can play with that extra knowledge as opposed to going into this first game of the day and then thinking, oh, he's probably just ramping into Malygos because that's all that's in the deck.
And Dreamhack is very different to nearly every other LAN or every online event as well, where every player is basically in the same room.
Yeah.
So word gets around. I mean, even word gets around quickly at a LAN where the players are spaced out.
Yeah.
But in this one room with 200 players in it, word gets around as quickly. If you need to know something, you can find it out.
Oh, very quickly, yeah. And the Fire Warlock's not really the best pickup in the world for Justsaiyan. He doesn't really need it at the moment, not using the 2 charges he already has equipped. But Slam there going to help cycle into more cycle in the form of the Acolyte. It's a few options, but I imagine this is just going to be a face tank moment. Yeah.
So counting up the removal, we can count, say the minions on board are basically 1 removal spell. The Brawl is basically 1 more. Your Execute is 1 more. So Firebat needs 3 threats before he even gets going here. And in that time, Saiyan's going to draw more stuff. So right now, even though Druid is a decent favourite in this matchup, at the moment Saiyan's got control of it. However, while all that is going on, Firebat has accumulated 1 Moonfire, 1 Living Roots, 1 Swipe, and got Saiyan down
and a Sylvanas against a Death Rattle deck.
Sure.
Feeling good about that.
Although it looks like he might be not in as strong a position as you would hope, he's still got plenty of ways to win this.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, this Yasharaj version of the Druid has just more threats. Like in general, the normal, say regular standard Malygos Druid. So it's not as straightforward for the warrior to deal with. It's something we mentioned at the start of the day, actually.
Right.
It's not as straightforward as my 2 shield slams are for these minions.
Right,
My 2
because they're
executes
just
are for
not
these
anymore.
minions. Because it's like, well, what about Yasharaj? What about Rag? What about Sylvanas? Suddenly this makes it really difficult to coordinate all your removal to be as efficient as possible.
Right, Saiyan's been protecting these Death Rattle minions, but now is the time where you're down to 24, which doesn't sound low, but actually the warrior needs to get out of sight because the Malygos full 4 spell combo is 26. Anytime you're below 26, you're at danger of just dying.
Yep. Now we're going to see how Justsaiyan's choosing to deal with this Sylvanas. Such a pain. Is going to trade, and what this does now, even if, there we go, so the Bane's stolen, what this does is, like, cash in the 2 Death Rattles into the Bank of N'Zoth, right?
The Bank of
exactly.
N'Zoth, yeah.
You make a deposit, you're going to withdraw later on when you play N'Zoth, and this is important, because if he didn't, and Sylvanas steals one of the Death Rattles pre-death,
Yep.
then, well, you've just lost one of your key minions from your win condition overall, so...
It's just been erased from the bank account forever.
Exactly, yeah.
Sounds like my bank account.
So, yeah, you know, it looks bad that the Sylvanas stole the Bane, but it's still in a pretty good position for Justsaiyan, I feel. Especially because he's drawn N'Zoth. Now he can just play with the full knowledge he has it straight away.
Yeah, he'll be looking for something a bit more, I think, because that just counts as one more removal spell. I'm classing everything in removal spells because the whole matchup is, can you remove enough of the Druid stuff to not go below about 24, 25, 26 health? And at the moment, it's looking like it's really going to be close to avoid the Malygos. And all the time, I mean, Firebat's still got Yasharaj. He's also got the Giant in his hand still.
Yeah, and this is the tough part, especially because what the Sylvanas has caused here. Justsaiyan can portal Shield Slam to deal with these 2 minions, but those are Shield Slams. Like,
right,
these
they
are like
kill Malygos.
yeah, these are the big removals. But then there's the idea of, well, if he Shield Slams twice this turn, he has 2 executes and bash for next turn.
Right.
Then he plays N'Zoth. Does he just win before that's a problem, right? Like, that's the key thing to think about as well. Like, is using your removal early on lesser minions enough to win you the game before the big minions win the game for your opponent? A lot of the time it's true and it happens.
In fairness, Soto made the point earlier that your shield slams can't kill Malygos because Malygos doesn't reveal itself. And
Yeah,
it's
it's more the Arcane Giants,
but it's
right?
good for
And
the
Ragnaros.
Giants, any hidden Ancient of War or
Exactly,
Ragnaros
yeah.
hiding around. And so we'll probably see him use these fairly liberally over the next couple of turns.
This is nice for Firebat. Ragnaros coming down, and now he's going to just threat bomb. Basically.
Now he's
Every
just
single
so
turn he's
far
like,
ahead.
here's Rag, can you kill it? Okay. Here's Yasharaj, can you kill it? Okay. Here's Arcane Giant, can you kill it? Probably not at this point.
Right,
You know,
and if you kill all those, at some point Malygos turns up. He may even come from Yasharaj. You might just go,
yeah, exactly.
and
Yeah.
then you just win. So way too many
Ooh.
things here. And summoning
funny.
Portal is not exactly what Saiyan wanted here.
Just a card for 4. The value.
Wow.
Yeah. This
That's
is
fine if you have more than 4.
yeah. It's going to be double shield slam on Rag. Just the extent.
Feels
Justsaiyan-
bad, man.
Yeah, it's the extent he needs to remove these threats, and now Firebat's just probably going to be like, depending on what he draws, yeah, Yasharaj.
You probably have to deal with this Portal, by the way. It's a little bit irritating
Well,
to have Warrior
that's
having
a Malygos.
permanent Innovate.
That's true. Only for minions.
Oh, that is indeed actually a Malygos. That is a very good analysis of that card, and I agree with it entirely.
Yeah. The portal's only a pain for minions, and at 10 mana, any minions the warrior wants to play are big enough to probably only be able to play 1 anyway. Because it is only... it'll be very difficult to combo multiple
Right.
minions. Bane's been played, Twilight Summoner's been played, so the cheaper ones are already gone.
Firebat doesn't have many minions left. There's probably 1 Mire Keeper at a guess, probably 1 more Giant. He probably has a good guess as to what's going to come out here.
Fandral,
Fandral would be good.
Emperor, or just a Giant. Arcane Giants are often free, but that would have been 5 mana if he drew it. So he just gets 15 mana's worth of play in that turn, 18 power on board. Actually lethal to what's developed actually on board plus hero power. And yeah, now it's down to
And
just saying
double shield slam gone, so Firebat knows that these aren't going to be dealt with anything.
This is
cheating. This is just looking
just a
grim.
problem, because there is no the problem with how he played the turn previously and what he had to do to get rid of Rag is that he has removed his execute activators.
Yeah.
So now he has nothing. He can't actually activate Execute without going in with the War Axe, and that is not something you want to do. Looks like he's going for the
old
Justicar double armor and the War Axe. How OP is the portal?
The old druid hasn't got 4 damage. I'll be fine. Play. He knows full well that he's going to like die here, but there's no point not making your opponent show it. There are
Living
games.
Roots.
There have been games where people have lost to like things like Anything Will Happen Murloc because the bottom 2 of the bottom 3 cards have been the Anything, and it's like, show me the win, and Firebat's just showing him the win right now.
And see, the Druid yet again having a great performance so far. I think if the Druid, we were talking about earlier, it's one of the standout decks, I would say, at the moment. And I don't know how much of the Yasharaj Druid you've played, but from what I've played of it, I actually like it because it just gives you more options and more threats in general. Oh, does he not? That's fine. Me and Sol aren't supposed to like the same things. It would be weird if we did.
I agree with you. I think the Yasharaj Druid is really good at the moment because it's good in the mirror. It's a little bit how Warriors developed, where Warrior was really good as a control deck, and then people went, I'm going to play N'Zoth, and then people said, well, I'm going to play Cthulhu. And if you're not careful, you
it's like a tiny rock, paper, scissors sort of scenario.
Goes on. And I think Druids do the same thing. They're going, right, I'm going to play the heaviest Druid, because Druid's like the dominant force in the meta, which is why Zoo's so big. And I'm going to play a bigger Druid than you. And it's going to be just bigger enough that I kill you without dying.
Yeah.
But it may not last, but it's good right now.
Yeah, and the Druids, what we're going to see as we move on to the next game, Firebat is 2-1 up versus Justsaiyan. This could be this is match point for Firebat. This could be the game, but it is going to be a Druid mirror, and these are volatile matchups if there ever was one.
Yeah, and the thing that feels bad in Last Hero Standing is when you're 2-1 down and you cue the mirror.
Yeah.
If that's your best option, you're in a tough spot.
Yeah, this is, for Justsaiyan at least, is almost a must-win game. Obviously, he just loses overall, but he has a worse deck anyway, so he's got to go against his Druid twice, so I'm guessing he's just taking his best deck to just get a winner onto the board, and then just hope his worst deck just wins out in the end. Maybe throw Firebat off with the potential of being like reverse killed from being so far ahead.
Yeah, he's in a good spot as well for it at the moment. Firebat had the double giant, which is fantastic in the mirror, because the first person to make an 8/8, the other person starts wasting their win conditions. They may end up having to use a Living Roots they don't want to, or a Swipe they don't want to, just to get rid of the 8/8, or a Mulch, which is not ideal because there's Ragnaros. And having the double giant, Firebat will be excited to try and just get these as cheap as possible, as quick as possible, and just plop them on the board. Against that, Saiyan's got Fandral, which is a great equalizer here. If you get your Fandral going before anything else, you're the one in the driving seat.
Yeah, it's gonna be kind of a tough one for both players. As you said, it's more like who just gets on there first, right? I feel like the second a minion sticks onto the board for like a whole cycle of turns, then it's going to be looking really good. That's a legendary, and it's Yasharaj from Barnes.
Saiyan just sits back in his seat. This is what
Firebat with this quickest of glances up to Justsaiyan.
Oh no!
Woo!
Okay.
Okay, so I heard that 14 power for 4 mana on turn 4, or turn 4, yeah, is pretty good.
You were lied to.
Oh, really?
No, not really. This looks pretty good.
Yeah, this is Dream Scenario. To be fair, there are a lot of great cards Yasharaj could have pulled. The
That's
deck
the whole
is
point
purposely
of the deck.
built heavy,
But
right?
Barnes pulling Yasharaj is the thing that makes it disgusting.
Into Yasharaj as well. What do?
Deck them. You have all your minions. I'm going to put up a wall of 1/1 taunt minions.
That wall of 1/1 taunts that Druid is well known for.
I don't know, I'm just going to make a deck up now because it looks like a real deck is not going to win this game.
Moonfire is going to be as good as it can get, and the Wrath onto the Yasharaj at least sets up Innovate Rag next turn for Justsaiyan to try and snipe the Yasharaj, to try and just damage control at this moment, because he's taking 10 to face this turn.
And it's interesting now that Firebat is just going to be able to head for a turn 8 giant into giant on 9, and that's assuming that none of this stuff is actually
This is the problem now, that there's the... Oh my lord. There's the Ragnaros from Justsaiyan to snipe the Yasharaj, but now there's a Ragnaros and an Emperor on the board as well. Like, he just can't catch up quick enough, and as you said, there's going to be Giants available extremely soon. There's simply just Azure Drake Swipe. He did get the Yasharaj, which is actually pretty sick.
Big-ish deal, I think. I think it's just in time to give him a non-concede situation.
Yeah, he has had chance,
but even Malygos into Living Roots is going to produce results.
With the reduction, the 0 mana Living Roots as well. Yeah, as you said, for the Malygos. Now he has Nourish, So he's just got even more options
I think
now.
you just go face for 5 here.
Well-
and then if Ragnaros hits Ragnaros, it's good. And if it hits face, he's down to 8.
Yeah, I actually think that the nourish is kind of great here.
Yeah.
Because what Firebat's doing is, okay, things got a little bit giddy for a minute. Now they're not as crazy. So I'm just going to take it slow. I'm going to draw way more cards than you. You can see Justsaiyan's only on 3, one of which is a
And
wild
you know
card.
you're winning with this Rag.
Yeah,
You don't
and-
care what this hits.
And you're ahead, and you know, you've just nourished, you've gained some extra power, and Emperor's still on the board. It's like-
Yeah, I mean, Druid,
There we
yeah,
go.
Justsaiyan's just had enough of that for one day. Thank you very much. He does not want to see any more of this nonsense.
Yep.
And Firebat goes to 3-1 in the tournament now, taking that down 3-1.
Yeah, this is huge actually, because at this point for both players being 2-1 with 1 loss already there, when you go to your second loss, it becomes like the scary moment in Swiss, right? You cannot drop another game. So Firebat getting ahead is great for him. Obviously, unfortunately, someone had to lose, so Justsaiyan was on the rough end there. But did you enjoy that matchup, Fred? A very quick finish to the series.
I did. I'm a huge Firebat fan. I think he's one of my favorite, if not my favorite personality in Hearthstone currently, just in terms of what he does for the community, the content he creates, and just being able to hang out with him. I think, you know, Firebat always tends to simplify a lot of statements down to like 1 or 2 things. And generally when he plays Druid, he tends to just say like, I'm just going to Barnes him and hit Yasharaj.
That's the winning play, right?
That's kind of like what he always jokes about, and it actually happened.
Yeah.
And not only that, he got the follow-up on the Rag. That game was, that game, in the words of Rayned, might be everything that he hates about Barnes. But at the same time, you gotta love it, man. That's quite a rush.
Yeah.
How you feeling, Firebat? You're squinting off in the distance. Classic Firebat.
Reminiscing about the Barnes.
Yeah, I mean, you lose a lot of points putting it into your deck because you got to cut Mire Keeper, so you get a little bit of a disadvantage in others, but it's great when it works out. I think it's good in the last year's standing format in particular because your opponent has the ability to counter queue you. And if they're counter queuing you, you're at a disfavorable matchup already, and there's 2 choices or thoughts of thinking there. Choice number 1 is, you know, just play the standard deck that's optimal and hopefully, you know, you get lucky and you can win it, or it's hard mulligan for your cheesy cards that you throw in there that can sometimes high roll you a terrible matchup, and sometimes you get lucky.
Well, I mean, Druid for Druid isn't exactly a terrible matchup.
That's not a bad matchup. He didn't really have the
Yeah.
the deck to be able to counter queue it left, but yeah, Barnes is a pretty good card. I think I would put it in almost every... I have it in every single deck except for the Zoo, and I think it's debatable that you could almost put it in Zoo.
Really?
It's,
Really? You put it in Zoo?
yeah,
There's a lot of cards that he just whiffs on.
yeah, but in Zoo they actually utilize the 1/1 more so than any other
That's
deck,
true.
right?
A lot of buffs.
Yeah.
So just having it split, but then it's kind of like Razorfin Hunter status.
Yeah,
but with
the
upside.
potential upside, you know,
Yeah,
you got
with potential
the
upside.
Death Rattle draw
Yeah.
card 3/2. You know, you got a Chargers.
Sometimes
taunt.
you get the
Even
Divine Guard or
Malkazar's in,
1/1.
right?
Yeah,
Even
Malkazar's
Malkazar's
in
in
can
for
be
the live
sick. You got
effect, too.
Death Rattles,
Okay.
Divine Shield.
Alright.
So
Okay.
I almost put it in, but just
Yeah.
and
I'm giving you a hard time.
I really wanted to put it in just so I could have Barnes in all 4 of my decks.
Yeah.
And I think that's not even that bad of a thing to do, but yeah, it didn't quite go that far.
Any comments on the fact that Sam brought Rogue? I think that's always a contentious class, especially in a time where Rogue is not good at all. And I thought you were thinking about bringing Rogue.
Yeah, I thought about bringing Rogue. It's a pretty scary proposition to bring Rogue. Rogue is so mentally exhausting, especially
true.
when you have like disfavorable matchups a lot of the time. So if you're going to be playing Rogue all day, like part of the Swiss grind, more so than play skill or deck building, is just mental fatigue.
Yeah.
And the player that's going to perform the best is the guy that's able to, you know, come here all day and stay focused the entire day.
Yeah.
Which is like a hidden skill that people don't see in Hearthstone, but it is, you know, it's an 8-hour day. You're here thinking critically for 8 hours straight. So I am not confident in like my ability to think critically with Rogue for that many hours in a row. Like I love Rogue, don't get me wrong, but it has much more decisions than a lot of the other decks. So I think for the like this format, it's important to think about, you know, where am I at endurance-wise? How much Hearthstone do I play on a day-to-day basis? And I've been doing a lot of casting, so just getting right back into it. You know, I just like, all right, let's step away from Rogue.
Do you
for
think
a
you're out
minute.
of shape?
I'm a little out of shape when it comes to
He's
stamina.
just coming out of retirement.
Yeah, like stamina's one of the biggest problems I had in even just prelims was towards the end of it, I'd start feeling, you know, I'm misplaying more, I'm playing worse, and it's something that I need to work on more. Prior to coming to this event, I had a few 8 9-hour streams to try and prep myself stamina-wise for the event. I think that was one of the most important things I did in practice, just so I could make it through. And it's going to be a long day.
Yeah, the Heroic Tavern Brawls really was good prep, actually.
For
Just
sure,
sitting
yeah.
down and trying to see if you can grind through. And maybe that's an advantage for people who aren't playing Cthulhu or Control Warrior, because I've seen some Cthulhu Warrior mirrors.
Oh, yeah.
That's part of the reason why we take so long to get to the next round, is because, you know, Jockey was playing another Cthulhu versus Cthulhu Warrior mirror, and it was super long and drawn out.
I mean, if you can do it, more power to you. But, you know, I just like self-evaluate myself, and I'm like, no way I can spend that amount of time, you know, thinking and actually making correct decisions the entire time. So.
Gotcha. Well, it's working out so far, 3-1. I mean, after the start of the day, it was pretty rough losing the first round. But if you go through 8-1, you're in good shape.
Looking to try and do it.
All right. Well, thanks, Firebat, for stopping by. We're going to get ready for our second series that we prepped for this round. Good luck in future matches.
Thanks.
Coming up next.